Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. This lecture we're going to talk about EC2 placement groups, and it's a theoretical lecture, but you need to have a good understanding of what a placement group is before going into the exam and in what kind of scenarios you'd use placement groups. So what is a placement group? Well, basically it's a logical grouping of instances within a single availability zone, and using placement groups enables applications to participate in low latency 10 gigabit per second networks. Placement groups are recommended for applications that benefit from low network latency, high network throughput, or both. So essentially, in real life, where you would use placement groups are things like grid computing. So something like a Hadoop cluster, for example, or if you're using Cassandra as your backend database and you need really high network throughput or low latency between your different Cassandra nodes. So essentially, those are the type of real-world scenarios where you would use placement groups. So I just want you to remember placement group is used primarily for very low network latency and very high network throughput. And the whole point of a placement group is this 10 gigabit per second network that you get. Now, there's a few things you need to remember about placement groups going into the exam. And the very first point is that a placement group can't span multiple availability zones. So when you create a placement group, it is a single point of failure. It can only be created within one availability zone. You can't spread a placement group across multiple availability zones. And that makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because at the end of the day, you're trying to minimize your network latency to, almost nothing. So you don't want your network latency to go, across two or three different facilities. So a placement group is always in one availability zone. The name that you specify for a placement group must be unique within your AWS account, and then only certain types of instances can be launched in a placement group. So these are things like compute optimized, GPU, memory optimized, or storage optimized instances. You're not going to get your T2 micros in a placement group. AWS always recommend that you launch homogeneous instances within placement groups. This is actually a topic that comes up more in the SA Pro exam rather than the associate exam, but still a good thing to know going into your associate exam. So by homogeneous instances, we just mean instances of the same size and same family. So you don't want to have a mixture of different instance sizes from different families within a placement group. And there's a couple of reasons for that. It's around reservations. But again, you don't really need to know this going into the associate exam. Just remember that AWS recommend that you always use the same instance family and the same instance size when using placement groups. Another thing you should remember is you can't merge placement groups, and then you can't move an existing instance into a placement group. You can create an AMI from your existing instance and then launch that new instance from the AMI into the placement group, but you can't move existing instances into placement groups. So that's it, Cloud Gurus. It's pretty simple. Just think of placement groups as very low network latency or very high network throughput, and they are always in the same availability zone. And you should be right for any scenario you see placement groups in the exam. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.